Fidel Castro's ashes have been interred in a private ceremony in the city of Santiago de Cuba. In Havana, the military fired a 21-gun salute to mark the moment. It also brought to an end 9 days of national mourning. For the latest, we are now joined by our correspondent, Sherwin Bryce-Peace from Havana, Cuba. Sherwin, thank you very much for joining us. Now, take us back to this morning.
Well, a very somber end to what has been a somber 9 days here in Cuba. We, of course, are in Havana, but the main events today, about 1,700 kilometers from where we are in the southeast of the country, in the second city of Santiago, and I think really culminating in, as you mentioned, the interment of those ashes that have snaked their way across this island, giving, as President Raul Castro referred at a mass memorial last night in Santiago, to the millions of people the opportunity to say their final goodbyes to the leader of the revolution, the 1953 revolution, claiming victory in that city in 1959. Did then a younger Fidel Castro, of course, passing away on the 25th of November at the ripe old age of 90. And last night, of course, we saw a mass turnout in Santiago's Revolution Square, tens of thousands of people paying their last respects, among them many dignitaries from around the world, including former Brazilian presidents Dilma Rousseff and Lula da Silva, the president of Bolivia, Evo Morales was there, the AU Commission chairperson, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, and South Africa, a large South African Communist Party delegation led by none other than South Africa's Higher Education Minister, the General Secretary of the SACP, Dr. Bladen Nzimande. And really, the story coming out of that mass rally was the speech by Raul Castro, in which he revealed conversations that he had with his brother, in which Fidel Castro insisted that he did not want to become a personality cult after his death. He didn't want to see his name on buildings. He didn't want street names after him, airports named after him. He didn't want statues to be erected in his name. And I think just speaking to the philosophy, to the idealism that has shaped his legacy here in Cuba, he did not want to be a personality cult. And legislation, we understand, will be passed in the next session of the Havana National Assembly, the Cuba National Assembly, where they will make it law that Fidel Castro's name not be put on figures or on buildings or on structures in Cuba. So I think speaking to the legacy, speaking to the revolutionary that is so admired in many parts of the world, particularly in Africa and in largely the developing world.
Now, Sherwin, staying with the conversations between the Castro brothers, we know that this is the end of an era. Castro ruled for 49 years and now his brother for a decade. What will happen post the Castro brothers in terms of leadership in Cuba?
Well, Tevali, I think we can actually talk about, the Castro dynasty that will be passing the baton on, if you will, to a younger generation. We hear that within the Communist Party here in Cuba, there is talk about, capping the age for leadership positions within the government at around 70 years old. Of course, Raul Castro himself, 86 years old. And I think a recognition that perhaps the older generation has done its bit, if you will. They've succeeded in the revolution. They've provided free healthcare. They've socialized Cuba. And now perhaps it's time for a different vision, a time for new energy in those decision-making corridors. And as you know, Cuba is on the cusp of something big. This is a sponge that needs to soak up so much. I mean, if you look behind me, you see some of the infrastructure here in Cuba. It's crumbling. It's in need of a lick of paint. Roads are in decay. So there's a lot of work to be done as Cuba opens up to the rest of the world. Of course, you'll remember that President Zuma led a delegation back in 2010 when the talk about Cuba opening up economically to the rest of the world began. South Africa at the front of the herd, if you will, that is looking to invest here, bringing high-powered delegations here. Of course, an important meeting in 2010 that was followed up in 2015, in December last year, by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. So Cuba is on the cusp of something big, but one of the biggest impediments that continues to this day, as you will well know, is the U.S. embargo, the economic blockade that still makes doing business in Cuba quite difficult. And as you've seen over the last number of months, the rapprochement led by President Barack Obama of the United States, but he can only do so much. Of course, President-elect Trump will have to take over, and we've heard a number of interesting things that he has said, that he will be seeking further concessions from the Cuban government if that rapprochement between the United States and Cuba is to continue.
Sherwin, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that update. That was our correspondent Sherwin Bryce Peace joining us from Havana, Cuba for that final farewell of Fidel Castro. Now in South Africa, Cuban engineers working with the Department of Water and Sanitation have also celebrated the life of Fidel Castro. They held an intimate ceremony in Pretoria and vowed to build on the Cuban leader's efforts to help develop Africa.
A hero remembered. These engineers paid moving tributes to Cuba's revolutionary icon, Fidel Castro. They aim to strengthen the working relationship between the two countries dating back to 1996. 34 Cuban engineers are currently deployed across all 9 provinces to help maintain and develop water infrastructure.
It's very important because we are learning with the South Africa especially, and we have the possibility to transfer our skills to them.
And equal praise for Castro's role in dismantling apartheid.
We, a few days ago, signed a document confirming our position to defend the revolution, to maintain our principles in a very high position, and to continue with the idea of Fidel forever. Long live Fidel. Long live. Hasta siempre, comandante.
Your capability on water security, on water management, on infrastructure maintenance, and we shall forever remain indebted to you because water is life. And you coming to this country to work with us in making sure that we redress the inequalities of our country through access to clean and quality drinkable water is again a spirit of a true revolutionary.
12,000 kilometers from home, a call on fellow Cubans to follow in Castro's footsteps. Patricia Fasagi, SABC News in Pretoria.
Botswana's